Hello, and welcome back to the Battle Frontier podcast, where we aim to help you level up in your journey as a competitive Pokemon TCG player. I'm Aaron Curry. Here with me, as always, my co host John Orgel. And we're going to just give our takes on things ahead of LAIC this week. Uh, and not going to beat around the bush. There's an interesting take. John and I kind of both share the same sentiment, and we'll jump into it pretty quickly after we catch up with what we both did this past week. So why don't we get right into that, John? How'd you do this past weekend? I know you said you were going to go to a league challenge during the last week. How'd that go?
Yeah, I went to League Challenge Wednesday last week. I did pretty bad. It was only a 3 round league challenge, and I went 1-2, so not that great. Round one, I hit Gardevoir. They, I think we had a decent game. I can't remember all the details of it exactly at this point. But yeah, I lost that. Round two, I played against another Gardevoir, but it was a newer player. Beat him, and then round three, I lost to Terrabox because they got like the turn two Ogerpon playoff, followed by the turn three Ogerpon playoff to just kind of clear my whole board out. So that
Sure.
was that. So nothing too great. Uh, Hopefully playing in a cup this Saturday, and I still got to figure out if I'm going to stick with Dragapult or try something out that out. Try something else out. But we'll see. I'm gonna do some testing on TCG Live and see how that goes. Then yeah, the rest of the weekend I did a lot of yard work Saturday. Sunday I just watched a bunch of football, which was nice. It's good seeing the Bills win against the Buccaneers after losing so poorly against Miami the week before. So took their revenge out on another Florida team, which was nice. Um, Other than that, yeah, we had a Ditto draft on Monday with some building battle kits that were left over from the pre-release, so that was fun. I pulled a SIR low punny, mega low punny, so that
Nice.
was kind of cool. Yeah, played that in the deck, and I went 2-1, so that was fun. Yeah, it was a good time, and ready to get back to it. I'm kind of having a little FOMO, seeing some people getting posting all the pictures of them traveling to Brazil. So I'm a little bummed that I'm not going to be down there this weekend, but I'll be cheering everybody on and very excited for that.
Sure.
But yeah, that was my weekend. How about you, Aaron? How was your weekend?
It's pretty good. Pretty good. Nothing crazy like during the week, but then um Saturday evening I also went to a league challenge and ended up playing Flareon box. I actually took 3 decks with me because I'm basically over this format at this point. I'm like so burnt out on it that I'm ready to just move on to the Phantasmal Flames format, which I've been just playing a ton of. But I took Flareon, Grimmsnarl, and Zoroark with me and just set all 3 deck boxes on the counter and had the guy at the shop pick which deck I was going to play for the event. He ended up picking Flareon, and boy, was that a miserable experience. I did not open Rotom any of my games or
Oh
a way to
man,
get Rotom any of my games. I prized a piece of my Pidgeot line in all 3 games, but I still managed to go 3-0 and win the event. So that was interesting. The the highlight of it was round two. I played against Alakazam to Dunsparce and took 5 prizes with Cruel Arrow with Pheasantipity,
wow,
which
that's
his
just
start was
cruel.
worse than mine, which was just insane. Like I think he ended up using Lily 3 times before he was able to actually find a Poffin to get more than one Abra out at a time, and at that point had used his enriching energy like 3 times as well, and it was not going well for him. It was
Wow,
terrible.
that's
Nothing
rough.
nothing credibly nothing was prized as far as Pokemon search. He just was not drawing the cards. But I guess that's just what that deck does sometimes. I've literally never played a game with it.
Yeah,
And then
it seems like a fun deck, but also probably infuriating when you don't hit the pieces.
oh
Yeah,
right,
just
absolutely.
I don't know.
But then on
That sounds fun.
Sunday, there was a street fair downtown, and that was Gilmore Girls themed, and that's a 90s show for 90s and
Oh yeah,
2000s show for any of you young people who may
love
not
the
know.
Golden Girls.
No, Gilmore Girls, not Golden Girls.
Oh, I mean, I could see Golden Girls makes more sense to me in Florida,
Well,
but
I don't know. I guess we live in a small enough town that people are like, "Oh, this resembles the town from this show." And but it was interesting. Like local coffee shop did like a flight of lattes that were all kind of themed around different characters from the show, and that was the thing that made my wife really want to go down there. She's like, "Oh, these look really good. Let's go." And so it was kind of like almost like a tiny craft fair sort of deal.
that's cool.
And that was a pretty good time. Went and saw a movie on Sunday, and yeah, just back to the grind. You know,
What
government's
what
back
movie
open.
did you see?
Oh, we saw Now You See Me, Now You Don't.
Okay, the newest one in the.
Yeah. So my son absolutely loves that movie franchise, and spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen it, which is probably a lot of people because it just came
Yeah.
out this past weekend. But they set it up to make another one, which should surprise probably nobody at this point
Wow.
because
Well,
Hollywood has
it's like Fast
absolutely
and
run out
Furious.
of
Yeah.
ideas, and they will milk any franchise dry if possible. Especially when you have actors that can bring people into the box office like Morgan Freeman, Woody Harrelson, like people
Jesse
actually
Eisenberg. Yeah.
exactly when people want to go see these people in movies. So it's not entirely surprising, but at some point you got to let it die. I felt the same way. We saw the new Tron movie recently, like
Oh
when it was in
yeah.
theaters, and I don't know how that movie got greenlit, man.
Yeah. I don't. I mean, who's the actor that's in there? That he's
Jared
not.
Leto.
He's not my favorite. Yeah. He's
No,
just.
he's one of those things where I'm confused. So almost every movie he's in gets a negative overall review rating, and somehow he continues to get hired as an actor when he had a fully successful music career prior to that.
Yeah.
So, like, how? I
I don't
just
know, man.
I
Yeah.
don't
Somebody.
get it.
Who knows?
I don't get it. I don't get
We're
it.
not. We're not in Hollywood. We're here for
Nope.
Pokemon,
Neither here nor
right?
there. So yeah, but did also actually take the time and watch some of the Vegas regional. But before we get into those Vegas results, saw some interesting stuff for LAIC that coming up this week. So we've had at events previously those kind of off stream tables or off
Mhm.
stream feature match tables. They're actually going to be streaming those games in addition to the main stage for TCG. I don't know if they're doing it for video game. I didn't look enough into it to see if they're also doing that, but they won't have commentary, but just having more content to view is really cool. And maybe there's a chance that on the main feed, if a game finishes up really quickly, they would be able to swap over to it, which is something I know I've been wanting them to do for a long time. And they've had it in Japan in the past too. So, or just maybe even just having that footage in the background that they could pop it up if there's a significant delay between rounds and be like, hey, we've got another game from round three. Let's go check out what this high profile player was doing. And just giving you a better viewer experience. So that's
Yeah.
really cool too.
Yeah, like so much of the originals watching experience is downtime between rounds, and
Mm-hmm.
so like it'd be cool to have, even if you don't, if it's not live, if it's just queued up from the other stream, that'd be cool.
For
Or you
sure.
could do like a highlight reel. I mean, that would be a lot to put on, like a highlight the replay guy that already does a lot to like have to edit something on the fly. I mean, not
Yeah.
that they couldn't do it; they could hire another person for that if they needed to, but for ICs especially, like the production value goes up a lot higher. So
Yeah.
I could see something like that.
Well,
But yeah, it'll
I,
be exciting to see.
I don't know. Did you watch much of the stream this past weekend?
A little bit.
Did
I didn't watch too much live. I kind of watched some of it like after the fact.
okay. Did you see that they added a new not it's not a casting role, but a new like staff role
Yeah,
on the stream where Chip was like the full-time analyst and had his own booth and everything to review like key moments in the game and whatnot instead of just having the current casters review those moments post game. And he was also
yeah,
able to, when there were like judge calls, he would jump in and like give the relevant information for whatever ruling it was or what the outcome of a specific judge call was. And it seemed pretty cool. It seemed pretty successful. So looking forward to see that more in the future too.
yeah. That worked. I think it worked really well. Chip's also the perfect person for that role. Like he does a really good job of explaining stuff at a level that like a casual viewer can understand, and
Sure.
like yeah, like he does it with he's able to adapt on the fly and like interpret data and explain it very well. So like he's a very good role for that. So that was cool to see. Yeah, it's just good to see kind of stuff like that work towards making the game more accessible for more people, making it
Mm-hmm.
more exciting to watch. I know you're interested in casting in the future, so I'm sure you're excited, especially like to see where that goes in the next few months and even years to see like if it gets
Absolutely.
expands and all that stuff. We're verging into esports. We're not quite at the level of League of Legends or Dota or
No.
anything like that, but we're trying our own little way of the few thousand we get, and I um I really appreciate it. Like it makes me watching at home like feel more part of it for sure.
Absolutely.
Um, not
And
just
it
to
just
have, yeah,
like you said, it's kind of the esports aspect of it, right? Where having that analyst makes it feel like you watch a lot of football or any other sporting event, and you'll have the people who are going over like why is this relevant to whatever happened, rather than, and you get like the John Madden effect really. Rather than just dealing with the people that are doing it in the moment, you also get the, oh well, we'll draw all your X's and O's and like draw the arrows. Like this is why this happened. This was a very important moment. This was like the pivotal turn in the game, and being able to call that up and having somebody being able to explain it a bit more in depth really just kind of is going. Sorry, I have to pause for a second. Julia texted me and said Gilmore Girls is not from the 90s.
Golden Girls was. That's why I thought you said Golden Girls.
Goodness.
The
Well,
Golden
okay.
Girls is
I doubt
2000s.
anyone in our audience is going to flame me for that. But
Well, my wife. Yeah, if my
anyway.
wife listens randomly, my brother.
um
My
what
brother
was I
might.
saying? Oh goodness, where was I at? But yeah, just having more, like the more esports aspect makes it feel more legitimate at the end of the day, and makes it feel like we aren't just kind of doing the silly thing to have more advertising. And as somebody like you mentioned who wants to do that casting at some point, if I ever had the opportunity to do it, it just makes it kind of, even it almost makes it feel like a loftier goal to try to achieve, because it's becoming more and more high profile, and you're getting more and more eyes on it. And it's all relative, right? Like it is still, for how popular Pokemon is, the TCG and the viewing experience of the TCG, the competitive side of it is still really niche compared to everything else that the franchise deals with. But being a part of that subsect as it does try to grow and establish itself and maybe break beyond those walls would be a really cool thing. And they're just really setting themselves up for success, I think.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah. We also had another innovation at this regionals. We had the first ever all online pairing reporting, I believe, for this event. Yeah, at least it started
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
So they definitely have implemented that. Like I said, when I was in Milwaukee, they did it for day two, for that regionals. Um, this time they tried to do everybody reporting all matches online, and there were some hiccups with that from what I heard. Do you know more about it, Aaron?
I don't. I just know it sounded like it was
Yeah.
a disaster. The first round was, I think, had like a 40-minute overtime, if not longer. And there were just constant complaints of people either forgetting to submit matches. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, like I said, I don't have all the information, but just one way or another, matches weren't getting reported properly. And I guess the procedure for that is supposed to be that those players get a double game loss, but maybe they were trying to be a bit more lenient on that, given that it was the first foray into establishing this process at a larger scale.
For sure. Yeah. From the group chats that I was a part of, I asked people that were there about it, and they said that for whatever reason, when you went and reported the match, it didn't like click over and verify that this player won for whatever reason. So I guess there was a couple people that thought they had submitted it but didn't submit it, and so they had to like
Okay.
get through all that. You know, I think it's okay to chalk this up to growing pains, to a new system being implemented at this scale. We've had it going on for a minute with online pairings for like the day two, like I talked about, and for the league cups at regionals. But this is the first time that we've had something like this at this scale,
Yeah.
where you have close to 3,000, or I think over 3,000. I don't remember exactly the number for Vegas, but it was a really big number,
Yeah,
if not
just
the
under like
largest number.
2,900.
Yeah, so I think that's the largest regionals we've ever had. Uh, if it's not, it's pretty close to it.
Sure.
And yeah, it's a huge undertaking. So props to Arcanine for trying that. And I'm excited to see that product get better in the future. I know it will. I mean, there's some really good people working on that.
Right.
And they're really responsive and to that feedback and to that criticism. Um, so I know that they're going to try extra hard moving forward, and I'm excited to see where it goes. But yeah, I don't know of any other news coming from the regionals as far as outside of the regionals. We don't really speculate too much, so I don't really know a whole lot about all of that. But we did may have some predictions going into the regionals, and I want to retouch on those.
Sure.
So I'll read them out real quick, and we won't really go into too much details about it. I'm just gonna list it out, and then we'll go right into tournament results and all that stuff. So I had 6 predictions, and I'm just gonna read them out. How many Poltnor will make cut? Both of us said 2. There was 2, so that was great success for the both of us. How high will Golden Goal place? Aaron, you said top 8. I said top 4. There was 1 Golden Go in top 8, so you win that one. What variant of Gardevoir does the best? This one was a little harder to pin down. You said a hybrid slash new variant,
Sure.
and I said jelly. I would kind of say both right on this one. You get points like the variant that one did have gelatin in it,
Uh,
but it also had 3 rare candy, and it was like kind of aggressive. So I don't know.
yeah, I mean, I'll
Um,
give this to you. Like the way that I had envisioned it
okay,
still was like a list that, even though it had Jellicent, would also involve Drifloon and kind of like a
yeah,
thinner
that's
jelly
right.
line. I do think the list that they ended up going with is interesting and like almost to what I was trying to like describe, but not quite there.
Sure. Okay. We asked how high will Cerulege place? Aaron, you said top 64. I was way too bullish and said asymmetrical top cut. The correct answer was top 64. I think you said 37th place exactly.
Ah,
I don't
it
think
did
that was the
not.
case.
No, it was 44th.
Yeah, not too far off. Uh, the next one was what dark deck does the best on the weekend? Aaron, you said Grim Snarl, and I said End Zoroark. I soundly won that one
You
when
were
we,
close. Yeah.
yeah, very very close. Almost pulled off the miracle, but we'll get into that. And then the last one was who will do the best for Las Vegas? You said Owen Dalgard, and I said Grant Manley. Owen finished in top 128 at 105th, and Grant I think finished in top 64, so I won that one. So very close for the both of us, but I think I edged you out 3-2 with the tie on the Poltnor to win predictions for this week. So that's that. And yeah, we'll get right into the results for this weekend.
Yeah. Here we go. And so, what shouldn't be a huge surprise to anybody, Tord managed to win a regional this year, taking it down with none other than his Mega Absol box. But we did have, like you mentioned, Liam Halliburton in second place, also with his kind of trademark deck at this point, Zoroark. He's been playing the deck for quite a while. Then following it up, like realistically, the story of this tournament, this is one of the most stacked or star-studded top 8s that we've had in probably years. Like we've got Tord Reklev, Liam Halliburton, Henry Chow, Ryuki Okada, Aban Ahmed, Nick Moffitt, Salmet Kukadapu, and then Hockenberg, who I don't think had any real finishes to speak of prior to this weekend, but top 8, not too bad. And we did once again. We continued the trend of a full top 16, but no bubble this time, thankfully.
Yeah.
Robin Schultz was 17th place, but he didn't bubble out. But the story of this event for me is everyone played their favorite deck from this format. Nobody looked like they were really trying to do anything crazy or outside the box, or not trying to target specific matchups. They said, I like this deck. They practiced with that deck. They did well. And so it's no surprise to me that Tort's playing Absol. It's no surprise that Liam's playing Zoroark. It's no surprise that Henry and Aban are playing Gardevoir. Nick Moffitt, I think, may have played a different deck previously, but that wouldn't fully surprise me to see him play Goldango either. And that continues if you go down into the top 16 as well. Bodie Robinson's been playing Goldango since Worlds. Fernando Cifuentes has been playing a dark deck. I think he had historically been more of a Zoroark enjoyer, but Mega Absol Box has some similar tendencies, so that doesn't really surprise me either.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's just like this is the format in a nutshell. And I think this is one of the reasons that I was kind of burnt out in a way, was like, even though I enjoy playing Grimmsnarl, nothing really like stuck out to me as like I have to continue to play this deck, because every deck has kind of established itself as being able to be successful. And it's just a matter of, it's a very skill expressive format, I guess is the right way to go about saying that. And that if you take your deck and you pilot it to its utmost degree, you're going to be more successful than someone who's playing it specifically for the purpose of, oh, I know Goldango is going to be super popular, so let me go target that. And that's why we don't see something like Sarah Ledge continue to be like it continues to not be successful, despite the fact that Goldengo is one of the most popular decks in the room at every single tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that sticks out to me looking at these is just the number of either regional finalists
Yeah.
or regional winners that made this top cut. You mean Tord was a finalist, I believe. Liam's
Yep.
one. Henry was a finalist, or if not a finalist, heavily influenced many finalists. Ryuki won one. Aban won one, and then yeah, you just Summit I think was a finalist last year, if not won one. He's been in the conversation. I can't exactly pin him down, but yeah, just the level of repeat, even in this season, even though we're not even all the way halfway through the year, we're coming up on the first international championships. We're seeing a lot of repeat offenders or repeat winners would probably be the better way to phrase that. So that's really cool. I think it touches on your point of skill expression being at an all-time high for people that are putting in the time and dedication and thought and effort into their season, and that's really cool to see. Um, I I mean, if you watch the top cut matches, it's some of the best Pokemon we've seen in a long time. Like some of the
Sure.
best game. Like even the commentators were glowing about it. Like going into top 8 and top 4 in the finals. Like we had probably one of the best matchups in the mirror match between Ryuki and Tord featured on stream. And I'm glad that they featured that. I think the other one probably would have been an interesting one with Henry and Liam. That's still a good matchup with Gardevoir and Jellicent and Zoroark. So I would have loved to see both those matches, truthfully. It's a bit of a bummer that we didn't have like the European model where they show both top 4 matches.
Sure.
Um, but the Tord Ryuki matchup, oh, just so great, man. Like, and the finals, which was shaping up to be like, one sided, I think people were very just convinced that, uh, yeah, it was like just going to go Tord's way because he ran the Cornerstone Ogre Pawn, and Liam didn't have an answer for it, at least a
Right.
readily available,
Yeah.
obvious answer like a Mega Absol or an Okidogi EX. But Liam put up a huge fight, man. He found a way. Like if we look at his list, we can pull it up real quick. He ran one copy of Blood Moon Ursaluna, and like, well, that has an ability, right? Well, he also ran two copies of Team Rocket's Watchtower. Or is it two or one? No, just
No,
one
just
copy
one.
of Team Rocket's Watchtower.
Just one.
Yeah, which was relevant because I think one game it was prized. Uh, so he put up a huge effort. Game one came down to him just needing to find energy to attack with the Blood Moon Ursaluna into the Ogre Pond to clear it, to then be able to kind of sweep the game from there. And he had two Dark Energy prized and wasn't able to find those in time, and then lost to just not being able to attack with the Blood Moon. So lost a
Right.
long game one. Game two, he pulled out miraculously, finding all the pieces to be able to attack with the Blood Moon, and Ionoing toward to late, so where you can find a counter stadium to bump the Watchtower, and was able to set it up to use the Pecharunt to swap out attackers. And this was just it was really good gameplay on display. Lots of cool just interactions going on, and this list itself was a very interesting list, I'd say. Very different than how we've seen Enzoroark shape up. It's kind of harkens back to like the original way people played Enzoroark with
Yeah, absolutely.
thick Darmanitan lines and running the black belts training and the Ends Castle and the Power Glass and all these trainers
And no
that we haven't really
Cyrano.
seen in a while. And no Serrano, yeah, no Serrano. So it's a little bit slower. It does have one TM Evo to potentially get stuff out that way. Not running a Yveltal even. So no cards except for Lilies that were part of the Mega Evolution format. So Lilies is the only addition. Using Lilies over the Professor Research or anything like that.
Sure.
Three boss, one counter catcher, so you can be a little bit more aggressive. And I don't know. I think this is just an interesting build. I think it just shows how dialed in he is with this list and with this deck in particular, that he's able to make such a strong pivot away from what, because he played this like a very different list than this to his win earlier this year, right?
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. No Darmanitan at the time. Has recognized Goldengo's come back into the picture. That matchup is pretty atrocious without Darmanitan, and even then, it's not. Darmanitan doesn't fix the matchup immediately, but it makes it playable, right?
Right.
And finding a way to get through it. But yeah,
Yeah. So,
definitely a cool list.
yep. The rest kind of, I'd say, I don't think there's a huge amount of innovation. Tord goes back to Cornerstone after a lot of people have
Yeah,
moved away from Cornerstone on this list. Henry and Aban kind of crafted up a new Gardevoir list as they've done for the last few regionals. This one focusing a
with
little bit
two
more on the
Ralts.
use of two Ralts. Or yeah, that's crazy. So it's a very like hourglass line 2-1-2 Gardevoir. Um, and then 2-1 Jellicent, and then yeah, just the only other attackers you have besides Gardevoir are the Jellicent, Clefairy, and the Screamtail, and I guess Mew as well. We should and Monkey Door you can attack with too, but so no Drifloom, no Mega Guardy, none of that. Um, a very like I'd say consistency focused list with four Iono, four Lilies, Secret Box, and the Tech. Stadium of the Mysterious Garden to help draw some more cards. Running a Devo to help just kind of deal with some of the stage twos and stage one decks of the format that wouldn't pose a problem. So yeah, I think again talking about players that are dialed in with their lists, with their decks, with their archetypes, knowing how to like kind of flex it and fix it into the metagame and the perceived like what am I going to face against? How do I ensure that I'm ready for those matchups? What can I put in my deck that allows me to just do the best I can possibly do for this tournament? Like what are my priorities with this list? Do I need to get Fast Guardy out? Okay, yes. Let me get the rare candies in here. Let me get the secret box in here. Let me run that kind of stuff. And I can cut like second Arvin or second Turo rather, and stuff like that. So
Well, and we've seen a trend where a lot of people felt the need to go back to thicker Gardevoir lines, like more Curlia, adding TM Evo back in because they were afraid of Dragapult. And instead, Henry and Aban pivot, say Dragapult's going to be down, or we don't think it's going to do very well, or we think we can beat it anyway, and just went straight in again with like the more turbo oriented as far as like how you're going to get your Gardevoir into play strategy. And it worked out pretty well for them. There was one weird circumstance. I don't know if you watched top 8 of Tord versus Aban. Um,
yeah, I did.
and this it confused me. I didn't know this was a thing we could do where Aban made a gameplay error in game 1 and then it eventually led to him getting a double prize penalty in game 3.
Yeah.
And
Let me pull up
kind
the
of
rules and resources while we're talking real quick, and I'm gonna
yeah, go
kind of
for it.
quote a section. Yeah.
Yes,
So
please teach me because I did
yeah,
not know you could like retroactively apply penalties to current or from previous games to current games. And I mean, at that point, effectively a double prize penalty in game 3 when it's already like a relatively close matchup anyway, that's basically a game loss.
yeah, it definitely felt bad. Like I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh, the judges were perfect. I mean, I think any judge would say that that situation wasn't the best. Like it should have been caught earlier. Let's say
Sure,
that for what it is.
sure.
And it's unfortunate that it wasn't caught earlier, but like I think the judges were forced to do something.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, or forced to like make a decision. And there is let's see, streamed matches, page 22 of the tournament handbook. Uh, Let me just pull it up.
Here, you want to go ahead and share that?
Yeah. So you have participating rules infractions in streamed matches. So rules infractions
Hmm.
committed during stream matches that are not immediately addressed may be identified and penalized upon subsequent reviewing of match footage. Additionally, certain kinds of penalties, especially those related to unacceptable behavior, so that's just a different clause. But
Yeah, yeah.
so this kind of is the workaround where normally you're not able to address penalties after the fact. Like normally you would not. Like if I got called over during game 3 of a match and both players said, "Oh, we made a huge mistake game 1. He did this action where he couldn't do this action,
Hmm.
but we're now in game 3." It's like, well, okay. Uh,
Like
you
I
know,
can't prove that
I
that
can't
happened.
prove it.
Yeah.
It's hearsay. There's no board state I can point to. There's no real way I can fix the scenario. So just keep playing. Unfortunately, like it's just a point at which I can't do anything. But because we have hard evidence in video form of the penalties occurring, we can look at those and say, "Yep, he definitely." In this case, Aban drew an extra card off of the use of the stadium when he had
Yep.
when he had only 5 psychic Pokemon in play. He drew a 6th card, so that is drawing an extra card, which is a DPC. So at that point, we have to issue a penalty. And if it's not addressed immediately, it may be identified and penalized upon subsequent review of the match footage. So we have seen issues where the penalty is, um, yeah, where basically we are able to identify the penalty and then we do give the penalty. You can't go back into the match and fix it retroactively. So we have to apply it to the match that's currently going on. In this
Right.
case, it was a game 3, so that was just not ideal, if I'd say. But it's kind of like uh, darned if you do, darned if you don't. Like, there's no perfect solution, I'd say.
Right. I mean, like by the same token, like if a Bond goes on and wins that game, and then they discover afterwards, and they say like, "What are you going to like?" If Tord discovers that down the line, says, "Oh, this happened. This shouldn't have happened. This negatively impacted me. What are you going to do about
Right.
it?" So I mean, it is the way the rules are written, and they're being applied appropriately. It just really feels bad if you're a Bond, right?
Yeah. It does. I'm not gonna sit here, but like, if we're really being honest, like it should. If it was caught in game 1 and fixed, a Bond loses that match and
Sure.
then loses the 1 second round to Tord. So like,
Well, it's
it
weird
kind of
because if it changes the whole thing. Game two is totally different because a Bond gets to
yeah,
choose who goes
sure.
first. And so we basically have a fictitious game two that shouldn't have happened, and then ended up in the game three scenario that we were in. So it's like a whole separate timeline, effectively, if the penalty gets caught at the appropriate time, or if the
Agreed.
gameplay error gets caught at the appropriate time. And we'll basically never know what the outcome of that match was. But eventually, it led to Tord winning the game, and effectively have led to him winning the tournament as a whole. And what would have otherwise, I don't know, Obama would have had to win another Absol game to make it to the finals.
Yeah.
And then we might have just seen a Pittsburgh repeat where Liam walks away with another W over Aban. And because I think that that matchup would have been a fair bit easier for him, it was considerably easier for him compared to the one that he ended up losing to in the finals.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we talked a little bit about that, but it was just a brutal, like hard fought, but like ultimately really uphill battle for him.
It was a
Um,
really cool thing too, though. Like I would definitely encourage if you did not watch any of the games or only have the limited time to watch a couple of games from this past tournament, I would 1,000,000% say watch the finals because even though it's
yeah,
kind of boring from Tord's side because he's just doing the whole cornerstone game plan, you get to see Liam sit there and go through the process of establishing what he needs to be able to win what looks to be a totally unwinnable scenario. And
yeah.
you also, I would also say watch top four, like John said. The Ryuki versus Tord game was also exceptional.
But even like ASIM was good too with Liam versus I forget who exactly. I think that was kind of one sided. Now that I think about that, maybe that wasn't that good of a one. It was
I
Liam versus a Guardi, so it wasn't that.
I think you just want to watch Zorark play more.
Honestly, I love watching high level Zoroark players. It's so
Sure.
like we were talking before the start of the podcast that Zoroark's one of those decks right now that if you're really good with it, you can do well. But if you're really bad with it, like the level, like the drop off is huge. We were looking beforehand at the statistics, and like Zoroark had like a 30 something win percentage day one. Um, but on day two, it had one of the highest win percentages. So like it just shows you like in capable hands, it is a very strong deck, but it is one of those like just confounding, frustrating, like very difficult decks to play right now. And there's a lot of those decks, I'd say, but Zoroark definitely ranks as higher, one of the harder skill level decks to play because you're not, your game plan isn't blow stuff up. It is very like Chinese finger trap. Like the harder your opponent punches into you, the harder you punch back, and
Sure.
that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that that's pretty much everything that I wanted to talk about from Vegas. Did you have any last closing thoughts on it before we jump over to Blaine's quiz show?
No, I mean, it was a good tournament. It's cool to see that Pokemon's trying new locations out with Vegas. I'm excited to go maybe there next year, and hopefully we'll have some more cool locations like that. Stuff that's easier to travel to than some of the stuff we've had in the past with you know some of the more Midwest or I don't know. It's interesting. Like like Knoxville, Tennessee is like it's a
Yeah,
cool city, but like just hard to get to.
yeah.
Or like Daytona Beach. Oh, that's probably not too bad, honestly, because there's a lot of budget airlines that fly to Florida for
They
relatively cheap.
right.
But
And theoretically, like it's not that far from Orlando and or it's not that far
sure,
from Jacksonville. Now,
but it's just
I
an
say
extra
I say that
step.
as yeah, I say that
Yeah,
as a native Floridian. But it's not and it's not really dissimilar from the people that flew to Chicago that to then drive to Milwaukee, right?
yeah, but it's not like I mean that at least you can take the Amtrak up fairly easily. Like if you're coming from Europe and you don't really know how to drive or like don't have a
Yeah,
car, like that could be a
that's
real
fair.
challenge in Florida.
We absolutely do not have public transit. Well, I
No.
shouldn't say that. They're working on it. We have
Oh,
there
you
is a
have
train
the
that there's a train that runs from the Orlando airport out to the port here at Port Canaveral, and then also has a line that goes all the way down to Miami.
oh nice. Is it
Yeah,
what is it? The Sunline or
it's
Sun
the I think it's called the Bright Line, and
Bright
they're still
Line?
working on it.
Yeah.
They're trying to expand it. They want it to be able to go like from Orlando. I think it's supposed to go all the way from like coast to coast, like Tampa over to Kennedy Space Center. It's supposed to split into Orlando to go be able to go down to Miami and up to Jacksonville. So we're trying. We're trying it.
Yeah.
It's hard in Florida.
Yeah, public transit in any southern states like an uphill battle for sure.
For real, absolutely.
Yeah.
Things are so spread out compared to like all of the metropolitan or not even the metropolitan areas, but just the Northeast is so condensed compared to the
Yeah,
South
the
that
Northeast
it's not even
corridor
funny.
is it's pretty nice like for that aspect at least when you can
Sure.
take like the Amtrak all the way from DC to Boston with not really any issues other than I mean it's shared with like freight trains so it's not ideal like it can't go to a top speed of what it could go to and you have to like kind of wait for freight trains sometimes so not the best system not anything close to Europe or anything like that but it's better than yeah like trying to go to like New Orleans from where you live by train
Yeah.
would be almost impossible
Yeah.
so I
One
don't
one
know
million percent. But
but
that's enough the transit
y-
talk. I think we can go ahead and jump
I
over.
could different
Well,
podcast maybe.
do you have a bunch of train questions in Blaine's quiz show?
Oh, I wish. No, I don't have any train questions, but I did want to do a different theme. So let me pull that up. Just to go over again how to play. Players will be given 3 multiple choice questions. If a player is stumped, they are allowed to ask for one hint at any time. But if a player answers all 3 questions without the use of a hint, a bonus point will be awarded. And I didn't do a train theme, but I did a Vegas
Okay.
gambling theme. So let's
Fair
go
enough.
gambling for this week's Blaine's Quiz Show. All right, you ready, Aaron?
I have no idea what this implies, so I'll say yes.
Fair enough. Uh, First question: how many cards do you draw if you flip heads when playing the item Gambler? Is it 4, 5, 6, or 8 cards?
So luckily for me, John, I played a lot of the Game Boy Color Pokemon card game, where
Okay.
Gambler was a favorite card of mine. This card is from the Fossil expansion for anybody who's never heard of it. And when you flip heads on this card, you draw 8 cards.
Yep. I had to give you a nice T-ball, put it right on the tee so you could smash it and feel good. 8 cards indeed. Good job, Aaron. All right. Next one. Due to gambling laws, many countries cannot host regionals and must host events with no cash prizes called special events. What city held the largest by TCG Masters special event in the 2024-2025 season? Was it Barcelona, Bologna, Utrecht, or Buenos Aires?
This I don't pay attention to attendance numbers, man. This is going to be hard.
Yeah.
Oh goodness. So I think they all capped. I'm pretty sure, but I want to say that the European ones had smaller caps, but maybe that's wrong. Like Buenos Aires, I believe only had, I want to say 300 something people last year. But I'm also just guessing because I really have no idea. So that's why I don't think a hint would help me either. So I'm gonna do my like a little shot in the dark here. I hope that it works and save my hint for the third question. I felt really confident after that first one. You set
I
me up
gave
for
you.
failure really
Oh, for
hard.
sure.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go. Oh goodness. Let's go to. Let's go Utrecht.
Okay. It is Utrecht. You are
Woo!
correct. Yeah. That had over 1,000. Let me pull it up real quick.
Wow,
I have the
really?
numbers. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Looking at special events last year. Oh, give me one sec. I just had it pulled up and then I reset the page. Special event. Apply. All right. We had 1,241 for May, 17th, 2025. Bologna had 1,239.
Whew.
So two less than Utrecht. So very, very close numbers wise. And then Barcelona had 817, and Buenos Aires had 275.
Okay,
So
so it was around 300. The other events are just way larger than I thought they were.
yeah, they were basically the size of a European regionals. So you got that one right.
Yeah,
Congrats.
two for
Last
two.
one. Got a
Let's
chance
go.
to go perfect this
Let's
week.
go for four, man. Let's
Yeah.
go.
All right. With the Mega Evolutions block, the new rarity Mega Hyper Rares were introduced. These gold cards will appear in approximately one in every how many packs? Is it 109, 512, 1,260, or 2,048?
So, is this question asking what is the likelihood of getting a specific one or the likelihood of getting one in general?
The likelihood of getting one in general.
Okay. I know it's way more than one in 109 because I want to say the number is like one in multiple cases, so it's got to be higher than 109. How many boxes is 512 packs? Is that divisible by 36? Be It's not. But neither is 1260s. I'm gonna go with 1260. That one's still divisible by 6.
Oh man, you're too good at this, Aaron. You go perfect for the week.
Holy cow.
1260 is correct. I should have picked numbers divisible by 36, but I didn't. So there you go.
Wow, that is the confidence booster and the springboard that I needed
There you
to
go.
almost
Yep.
almost catch up to you. I think our scores after that would be 11 to 13
Yeah,
if
yeah,
I
yeah.
remember correctly. So only trailing by 2 after what previously felt like an insurmountable lead on your part. So
Man,
I'm
good
coming
job,
for I'm
Aaron.
coming for blood, John.
Well, don't come from my blood. But it was I tried to give you the easy one, the first one, and then I guess I didn't make them hard enough, or you're just too good at this game. So congrats, Aaron.
I fully guessed on the special of the SPE attendance
The
number.
SPE
Never.
was a tough one because they were like, you saw two or three like players off of each other, so
Mhm.
very close.
And I remember I saw something like I think TCG Player put out the estimated pull rates on Phantasmal Flames.
It was on Pokey Beach. That's where I
Oh,
got that
was it?
information from. Yeah,
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that I didn't go on Pokey Beach today though. I swear I saw a figure somewhere, and I guess I must have seen the number 1260. So I had some sort of like imprinting or suggestive behavior that led me to that number. But really, it
Yeah,
is
just
the only one that it is divisible by a multiple of 6. So
yeah. Well, you're just too good at that stuff.
math, John.
Yeah, math. I'm not bad at math, but like I'm not also the best. So I don't know. Next time I'll think through it a little bit more and give you more of a challenge. But good job, Aaron.
Thank you.
We'll
Appreciate it.
I'll try to regain my lead next week with what I'm
Well,
sure is going to be an
you already have a lead. I need you to just. I'm
well
going to try to stump you.
re-extend my lead. That's what I meant to say.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Then the last thing to talk about is kind of the big news for the week, right? Like we've got LAIC coming up, is the culmination of the Mega Evolution format. Everything's been leading up to this more or less, and we haven't done a tier list in a while. The way that we're going to approach this one is different from how I think most people traditionally like achieve and cultivate their tier lists, and the way that we've also done it historically. And we're going to rank these by the likelihood of top players to bring this to an event, more or less. And we say like percentage wise. So, you know, it's like spoiler alert, there is no S tier. There's not like this is the deck that all of the top players are going to bring. There are going to be a smattering of decks in the A tier that are very likely to be brought, if not guaranteed to be brought by the top players. B tier decks are decks that top players could bring, but are less likely to based on what we've seen throughout this format. C tier decks are very unlikely to be brought by top players, and D tier decks are not decks that top tier players will be playing. But kind of a caveat, an asterisk, if you will, to all of this. And the thing that we talked about when we looked at the Vegas results was if you've been playing a deck this entire format and you're going to LAIC, don't listen to what John and I say. Play the same deck. I would say at this point, do not switch off of whatever you've been playing unless it is Raging Bolt. Don't play that deck. But everything else, like even Sarah Ledge, which we're not going to rate very highly, if you've been playing it the entire format, please continue to play that deck. It is the deck you likely know the best at this point and will also give you the best results.
Yeah, I think it's an important concept so often in Pokemon, but especially right now, there doesn't seem to be like a consensus number one deck or an anti-meta deck.
Sure.
I mean, I guess Mega Absol Box kind of fits that anti-meta mold, but it. I think that would be the one deck. Like, if you weren't confident with something, that would be maybe something you'd want to try. But ultimately, like that's going to be a very hard deck to pilot too. Like, we saw a lot of top players play it this past weekend. I think that would probably be like the deck if I wasn't sure what to play, maybe leaning towards that. But I think even that still is gonna you're gonna have to play a lot of games with it and have to feel really comfortable with it because there's a lot of weird scenarios that come up and a lot of weird like okay what that's like fencing like when do I attack, when do I just clutch,
Yes.
when do I just pass with Omega and the Active and Penny and set up my board with like an attachment of energy or something like that.
And being able
So
to
all
do
these
like hand read your opponent is also really important with the deck. Like when
yeah
do I need to Claw of Darkness? Or with some of the builds, like what we saw from Ryuki, both with his win over in Brisbane and what he brought to Vegas this past week with the Zerosic and the Eerie. Like when do I play these supporter cards? Like what's the trigger turn? And sometimes the Absol informs when you play those supporter cards, and other times they inform when it is the correct turn for you to Claw of Darkness, depending on what your opponent, either what you see off the Eerie or what they choose to discard with Zerosic. And it's also kind of matchup dependent. That's a I would be hard pressed to tell somebody to pivot to Mega Absol or to end
okay
Zoroark. I think that both of them, like we've mentioned in the past, they're relatively difficult decks to play compared to some of the other ones on this list. They're also ones that I think people are less likely to have experience with. But like we've seen them very heavily represented by the top players. It's no surprise, I think, to anybody here. Good players are going to be playing these decks at this event.
yeah I'd agree with that. I think both of them will, yeah, see a good showing at LAIC. Um, they don't have quite the surprise factor that they might have had earlier in the format, but they definitely still have strength. They still have just hard decks. They're just hard decks to play against. They're big walls. They're Enzorark 280 is not a huge number, but if you're playing certain decks, it's hard to reach that number, and they can just kind of set up a board state to where it's almost impossible for you to like really feel that you're in the lead. And they have the consistency to execute on their game plan every time with the tradability. And then Mega Absol Box, if you had a hard time getting over Zoroark, well, you're going to have an even harder time getting over these Megas now. And they're going to run Lively Stadium and Bravery Charm to make their Megas even bigger. Um, and yeah, they're just abusing Monkey Dory, setting it up to where if you hit into my Mega Absol, well, then I just move 60 damage back over to your side of the board and knock out whatever's in the active. And if you don't have an answer to deal to that, or if you do, then I can kind of pivot and reestablish, and then eventually Iono you late to a small hand size and prevent you from executing on your game plan. If it's like a golden go, I can just kind of pick apart your hand, get
Yep.
rid of your, superior energy retrievals and stuff like that to kind of limit what you can do, and then just sweep from there. So both are very skill intensive, but both are very like I think high skill, but high skill expression comes along with that. I'd say.
Yeah, and they're flexible. Like we've seen
Mm-hmm.
variations in how these lists, like you mentioned, Liam's list being totally different in Vegas than it was back in Pittsburgh. It's the same format,
Right.
but he's bringing a totally different build of the deck. Will he transition it to a further different build? I don't know. That's tough to say, but it's possible. Like we've seen Liam's list, Piper's list, Cal Connor's list, and now Liam's list again, that are all reasonably different from each other, but just the power of trade in tandem with just Gardevoir being a popular and strong deck makes the deck very formidable into many, many matchups. And if you really wanted to tech for some of these other ones like Goldengo, we've seen people play things like Toad Scroll in the past that could theoretically slot back in, but that seems unlikely unless you expect it to be worlds levels of Goldengo again. But
Right.
we do have probably a pretty good sized contingent of European players coming over. And, we have players like Daniel Magda, who are likely to be in attendance, assuming he made it through the lottery system. And I wouldn't be surprised to see players like that bringing that Goldengo out either.
Yeah. It's another deck that, and it was I think one of the highest, if not the highest, in the meta share for Las Vegas. So I expect it to pop right back up into that place. And it is deceptively challenging to play and play well, especially this variant where you're really more of a resource. Like you don't have the you don't have the Energy Search Pro to just power out all your energy. You have to like
Right.
find ways to get your energy effectively, while also conserving resources for a late game and setting up your board to where you don't get clutched or something like that. Um, I think it's deceptively hard to play this deck, but it's easy to pick up, but harder to play once you get to the higher levels, higher tables, harder matchups, that kind of stuff.
Fully agree. Now, these three decks all kind of share something in common. I think that they're all relatively weak into the more aggressive decks in the format. Now, Goldengo obviously leans aggressive of the three, but the Cerulege and Raging Bolt of the world, like something of that caliber, are actually pretty good into both Zoroark and Mega Absol Box. Goldengo, maybe specifically for Cerulege, but we're not going to see anybody that you would realistically consider to be a top tier player bringing these decks to this event. Again, like we said at the top, if you've been playing either of these for a while, except maybe Raging Bolt, please keep playing the same deck. But just know that the deeper you go into the event, I think the less likely you are to run into one of these decks.
Yeah, we talked about our predictions where Saberledge's the highest placement for Vegas was top 64.
Yep.
It's one of those decks that can do well, especially when you hit the right matchups. But as the tournament goes on, you're going to hit more experienced players and more capable opponents, and they're going to find those lines that really just take advantage of the weaknesses of your deck. They're going to find ways to just make your deck not function well. Like, I think that it is really hard as a Serial Edge player to really just feel like you have an advantage going into like those tougher matchups, like some of the decks we'll talk about in just a minute. But yeah, it's not a bad deck by any stretch. Like it still has a lot of raw power and strength, but it definitely can struggle when your opponent doesn't follow a traditional linear game plan like you're trying to do every time.
Exactly. That's the thing that a lot of these other decks have. The ones that are more likely to be played by these players is that they have options, and Cerulege in particular just doesn't have options. Like, yes, theoretically you can attack with Cosmic Beam now, which you couldn't do before, but that's not going to get the job done in most scenarios.
No, it can really only do so much.
Yeah, yeah. Again, to no surprise of anybody, I think both variants of Gardevoir, whoop, get back up there, are very likely to see play by top players. Like almost certainly, especially again if we have the Henry Chow contingent going. Although I did see Isaiah Bradner was planning to attend the event, but now will not be because I guess he got a concussion. And
Oh
so
wow.
he's unfit to travel. So that's one less Gardevoir than what would have been at the event. But I still expect a sizable number of strong players to be playing Gardevoir when all the chips hit the table.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely still a strong deck. Doesn't really lose much. Can be teched for what you expect to face. Like, you can choose between the two builds there. I think I would probably give the edge to a build that runs Jellicent. Just having that item lock ability, though you might not always need it, can really just win you some matchups, especially against Golden Go.
Sure.
You can really just control the tempo and go from there. Um, yeah, I think it's very skill expressive, strong deck. I mean, we don't really need to type up Gardevoir any more than we've had to. We talked about it for the last 2 years, so it's coming up
Right,
on 3 years
exactly.
now. Yeah, it's still the strong deck it was.
We are definitely awaiting the rotation of the card. I think that the next batch of decks is going to be what would be in what is listed here as the B tier, but still could be played by top players and probably will be, but to a lesser degree, I think. And it gets weird trying to talk about this in this way when you look at the limitless percentages or the percentages that they show on the stream graphics, and you say, "Oh, there's 13% Goldengo at this event," but realistically, like what percentage of those players are in this echelon that we're trying to consider? Like this is it's almost like how I guess theoretically how likely are these decks to make top 16 if we assume that all of the players that make top 16 are able to play these decks to the optimal level and they're being as expressive of their skill as possible. Like what decks are those players one likely to choose, and then therefore because the top players are playing those decks they're more likely to make cut. And I think that the next two are potentially possible. Like we saw Grant Manley playing Charizard Pidgeot. Azul has been kind of on record saying that he would have played Charizard to Vegas if he had gone. He has been a big proponent of Charizard throughout this format, but it just feels like it's kind of down a tier unless you're Jackson Ford or Grant Manley. I don't know if anybody else is really bringing this deck to the event.
Yeah, I think it's still strong. Obviously, Charizard just such a big wall. It has really good matchups into some of the decks we were talking about with Gardevoir and Zoroark can be
Mm-hmm.
pretty good. It can be challenging too, I guess. But the Golden Go is a good one if you run the Chi-Yu, which you should be at this point, obviously.
Yep,
And Mega Absol, I feel
that's
like
a
it can
tough
be a
one.
really tough one. Yeah, that one would be tough. Mega Absol doesn't care about your huge Charizard as much as some other decks do. If you can just move 6 damage over it, I mean, you do run the Mist, so that helps. So there's some counterplay with the Enhanced Hammer and the Mega Absol, but that's just kind of like you got to find it and all that stuff.
I think the
So
cornerstone's just the big problem, though.
true. Yep. Yeah. Charizard doesn't really possess a easy answer for Cornerstone at the moment. We might see Mega Charizard XCX
Yeah,
in the near future, but that's not our format going into LAIC, so we don't have to worry about that right now. Um, yeah, I think B tier makes sense, and I don't know. I feel like putting in Grimmsnarl. I know that's your pet deck, but I think putting that in B tier makes a lot of sense too. Maybe C tier.
yeah. I think as far if you're talking about top player representation,
Yeah,
I as much as
C
I think
tier.
this deck deserves to be represented better, it's not likely to be played by top players at this point. Like
Yeah,
the only people we continue to see playing it, I know Arthur Tressler made top 4 in Gdansk a couple weeks or a little while ago, but and also had played it at Worlds, I believe, or NAIC last sometime last year. And I don't know, man. Nobody wants to pick the deck up anymore.
Well, I think one thing holding it back is that Mega Absol box matchup. Like it, looking at the tournament results, the metagame share. Uh, I was looking at Grimsnarl's meta percentages for matchup percentages rather. And going into Mega Absol box, has a 28% win percentage. So
Is
it's
that
pretty.
aggregate for the whole event, or is that day two?
That is day two.
Okay. I mean, you get the whole. Again,
That's
though.
pretty.
Again, I think that the Absol players that made day two are likely. I don't know. Maybe I mean theoretically, the Grimsnarl players that made day two are also the better
Okay,
Grimsnarl
sorry,
players in the ring.
that wasn't day two. I made a
Oh,
mistake. Day two, it is 33%.
it's still not great, but
No.
and maybe I know we were talking about this matchup earlier. I'm not super fresh on it recently, and presumably the Absol players have gotten better at playing the matchup. Um, yeah, maybe it's just that. Maybe it is just unfavorable at this point.
Yeah.
And that
It.
could be something like if you're trying to win an event, you know you're going to have to play against a Ryuki or a Tord at some point playing Absol, and I guess that makes Grimsnarl not the right call.
Yeah. So that I think that's my thought. Holding it back would be that matchup.
I think another
Dragon.
deck that gets held back by that matchup is what you were just about to
Yeah,
mention with the
Dragon Ball
Dragon Ball Dusknoir.
Dusknoir is it's such a weird one for me. I've been playing it. I think it's B tier. I don't think you can put it C tier. I think it's
No,
as far
we'll
if we're
still
gonna
see
say
a good
what
number
decks.
of them.
Yeah, I mean, we had two make top eight. Like, it's still
Exactly.
played a lot. Even if it's a sunk cost fallacy, if players recognize that this isn't like the best deck for this format, it's still like if we're gonna say that you should be playing the deck that you have the most reps with, you should probably be playing Dragon Ball Dusknoir if that's what you've been playing for the last year and a half.
Yeah.
Um, it's still solid. Like even if it doesn't have some of the best matchups, people aren't really respecting it. They're not putting ducks in their deck with Psyduck. They're not hard countering it with other stuff like that. I mean, that's the main hard counter I could think of, but like
But we
nobody's
saw like
running
the Gardevoir lists that were successful last
right,
weekend still aren't
moving away
respecting
from TM
Dragapult.
Evo.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I don't know how well it positioned it is going into this metagame, but I think it's definitely up there for me. I think I would probably put it up. Yeah, uh, I'd almost swap it with Zoroark A tier to B tier, but I know you probably won't let me get away with that.
I disagree. Purely
Yeah,
because I know, like, you have players. I'm assuming Liam's going, but if Liam or Piper, Cal's
sure.
an interesting one because I know he's played Zoroark in the past, but he also just played Gardevoir this past weekend. But both Fernandez brothers have been playing N Zoroark for a while.
Yeah,
Um, and so I'm saying, just in terms of top player representation, maybe Dragapult does deserve to be up a tier, but I also feel like it's fallen down a peg, and we have seen some of the players who were playing it previously pivot away from the deck.
that's fair. Um, so going back into the combination of Dragapult, we have the deck I convinced Aaron to put onto this tier list last minute. Dragapult Charizard. I think this is kind of my rogue pick for the weekend if I had to pick a deck. Um, it's been doing really well in seniors with Nathan Osterkatz getting first in the seniors division, and Omar, I don't know if you played the same 60, but a relatively similar 60 cards. Um, this I know Aaron doesn't like this deck at all, but I think it's still a strong deck. It has some answers for some of the questions that are being posed by some of these decks. Has Doesn't have Pidgeot for Charizard, but you have Recon Directive. You run the cool. I think I like the stage ones a lot, so I think that's cool. You can play like a one prize board and choose when to be attacking and stuff like that. I like it a lot, but I know that Aaron's not a huge fan, so I'll let him kind of rebuttal.
Yeah, I mean I want to put this thing in D tier, but
Sure.
and that's again mostly because I don't think anybody's going to play it anymore. Like I mentioned when you first convinced me to put this on here, the players that were playing it, like when Rowan Stavinow played it at NAIC last season, all of them have moved off of it. The deck has lost its luster, so to speak. And yes, obviously Charizard and Dragapult are powerful cards in their own right, but I think that both, like, this archetype exists as a weaker version in my mind of both of the decks that we currently have in the B tier. And again, if we're looking at it from the perspective of representation, this is likely a D tier deck, but I also think that it will, I don't know, it's more powerful than either of the decks here. Maybe it still belongs down here, but just so I don't make John cry, I'm going to put it in the C
Oh,
tier.
okay. So kind. All right, and rounding it out, we have a couple kind of odd ducks, if you will.
Yep.
I don't think any of these decks, like, we had pretty strong showings from all these decks, with Flareon Noctowl getting second recently from sorry, what's her name?
Emma Hagen.
Emma Hagen. Yep.
Yep.
We had Terrabox do relatively well in the last few months as well, and then Joltik Box made top 8 this past weekend. So I don't think we'll see a lot of representation from these. I would probably lump these into um I think Joltik I'd probably put in C tier, and then all of them in C tier, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. I think like we've seen kind of some diehard players like um
Mm-hmm. Like Alex
uh
Schmansky's been playing
yes,
Terrabox.
that's what I was trying to think of.
Yep.
He's been playing it since Worlds, hasn't put the deck down yet. Now, granted, that's a very small contingent, but Alex is an
He's a good
IC
player, and it
finalist.
wouldn't
Yeah,
be unreasonable to expect him to do well at this tournament.
right. And again, that goes into player skill expression rather than necessarily archetype expression. Like the big thing at the end of the day, every single card or every single archetype in these top 3 tiers, maybe with the exception of Joltik Box and Dragable Charizard, but I am biased, are powerful in their own right. And we one of the things we mentioned when we brought up the idea of building this from the perspective of how likely are these decks to be played, rather than just saying this is a good pick for this event because this matchup and this matchup. When you look at if every deck is a comfort pick for whatever player is bringing it, any deck in the top 3 tiers could win the event.
Mm-hmm.
And that does include Flareon. I had a relatively sour experience with the deck this past weekend,
Yeah.
but I mean, actually, probably this is a D tier deck in terms of representation. I don't
Mm.
know anyone who's playing it besides Emma, and that might be
We've
enough to
had
bump it
some
down.
Europeans, like Mies played it recently, I believe.
He played Flareon though. I thought he was playing Terrabox.
Maybe it was Terrabox with Pidgeot. I'm misremembering. Let me look at the metas. Um, let's see. For Flareon Noctowl,
It's always been a low
Nathan
play rate
Doyle's been
deck.
pretty popular, I guess. But yeah, not a huge contingent for
No,
sure.
no, it's always been. I'd argue it's probably been sub 1% at every event that
Mm-hmm.
it's been played at. Now, granted, it's been outperforming that play rate by a pretty large margin, I'd say. Like most of the people who are playing the deck are doing pretty well with it. But I don't know, man. It doesn't have the representation. I do think it is. This is the one weird kind of exception for both Terrabox and Flareon Noctowl. Just the Noctowl decks here, I think, are better positioned than these two decks and are more likely to see play. I do not think any top players will be bringing either of the decks we have in D tier. There will be some number of top players that will bring these two decks, but they're not going to be highly played by any means. It almost makes me want to actually have a tier below, like have these decks be the D tier and these decks are just like the F tier. Nobody's going to play this,
Mm.
and
Yeah, I
not
guess
be
that.
not D tier in terms of power level, but D tier in terms of representation, right?
Yeah.
Because again, like this, it's kind of a weird way to describe this. Like if I was to assign meta percentage of top players playing these decks, all of these decks would be over 10%. These decks are probably going to be in like the 5 to 8% range. These decks are, I don't know, somewhere between 1 and 4 or 1 and 5, and these decks are 0.
Did Ian Robb get
He
nicked?
played
Like he's playing at the tournament, right?
for LAIC.
No, for Vegas.
He played in Vegas, yeah.
I don't see him in the results page here. It's weird.
I know he was on stream. I'm pretty sure he played Jelly
Yeah.
Guardy.
Uh, Let me look.
I don't remember how he did, but I know he was on stream at some point.
His name's not pulling up when I search it, so I don't know what's
Well,
going on with
hopefully,
that. Hopefully,
I
no. Yeah, I don't see his name, but that doesn't mean a whole lot. Might just be that he made day 2, right? Yeah,
that I honestly couldn't tell you.
he might not have. Let me. Uh,
Yeah, if you expand beyond day 2.
yeah, it might be the part where he might not have made day 2. Oh yeah, he did not. If he went 5-3.
Happens. A lot of players
Yeah.
like, but yeah, I think that like, are there any of these that you feel need to be moved by any means?
Um, as far as like A tier goes, I think I'd probably move Enzor work down to B tier. I do think there will be a lot of top players playing it, but I don't think it will be like the first pick for a lot of top players, like the other four decks listed there. Um,
Okay.
I think B tier, it's a high B tier, but like I think that unless you're like, if we're gonna say that only a few players can play it, then I don't think that really fits into A tier as well. Um, that'd be
No,
my
that's
one
fair. That's
feedback.
fair. Yeah. I mean, I
I
think
like
this
the
looks pretty.
deck. I'm not saying it's not a good deck, but yeah,
Yeah.
only Liam's really had those. Liam and Piper have had those like fantastic finishes, and I guess Cal at one point. Um, so we have seen it do well with top players, but I don't think top players will want to pick it up and play it this weekend. Um, well, I could be wrong. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, I think I agree that like we're not going to see droves of people go and pick up Zoroark, but the ones who have been loyal to it will probably continue to play it. I think at the end of the day. Um, but yeah, I'm pretty happy with how this looks, and I don't really have any final thoughts. Like the thing we said at the top of the tier list: stick with your comfort pick, do not pivot, and just good luck.
Before we sign off,
Yeah.
we normally pick. I just want to do not a whole slew of predictions, but I want to pick 2 players this time since it's such a big deal tournament. We'll do 2 players we think will do well at LAIC. So, how about we pick 1 player from North America and 1 player from the rest of the world? If
Okay.
that makes sense.
I don't know who else going. This is a tough one.
Yeah.
Um. Okay, I've avoided picking him all season. He hasn't won anything yet, but that just means he's due at this point. I'm going to go with Henry Chow.
Okay. I will. Hmm. Who's going? That is a good question. For North America, I'm going to some name that I really think have picked recently. Um, I'm going to give a shout out to Samit Kukadapu. I
Okay.
think he's done really well in the last few months. Like last season was his breakout season. He
Mm-hmm.
just got top 8. I think, assuming he's going, this is the hardest part, right? Like we don't know
Right.
all the players going.
Yeah.
But I'll give it to him just on the hopes that he's going.
Fair enough. How about let's have you take your first crack at the rest of the world pick, though.
So for outside of North America, I'm going to pick a name that should be all too familiar for all of us, and especially for Brazilians. And Gabriel Fernandez. He had quite the season last year, probably the best ever for a senior, and he's had
Mm-hmm.
really good success at the regionals level in the first few of this season. And I'm going to take him to protect his home turf to make Brazil, like his home. Like you can't come into LAIC and expect to go not have to go through him. So I'm gonna pick him.
I'm going to pick a different hometown hero from Brazil and go with William Azevedo.
Okay.
Um, hasn't I don't think that he's done too terribly well. I do believe he made cut in Belo Horizonte, or was very close to it, but fell, I believe, in asymmetrical, or maybe he only made top 32. I honestly, off the top of my head, can't remember. But he's a good player. And, for the longest time, he had put Brazil on his back in terms of Masters results. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him turn up and do it again.
That's fair. Uh, there was also a special event in. Um,
Oh, you're right.
I don't think
It was
it was a
Buenos Aires.
Brazilian. Yeah, but we don't have the results from that. So
I know it was streamed. I know.
yeah,
I think Azul was like doing a watch party thing for it, and it's some. I believe the finals was Dragapult Mirror again, but I do not know for sure who was playing.
fair enough. So if we find that out, we'll talk about it next time. But yeah, I'm excited to see it all unfold.
Hmm.
I'm excited about it to talk about it with you next week. Good luck to all those traveling. Hope you all have safe travels flying to South America. I definitely recommend Guarana, the soda from the Guarana fruit. It's one of my favorites. I love the Guarana Zero. They have that in Brazil. That's like, I don't know, my guilty pleasure. If I'm drinking soda down there, that's what I'll drink. But yeah, I love Brazil. I I think it'll be a little bit warmer down there. It's like their spring now, so that'll be nice. Yeah, let me see the weather in Sao Paulo. Just have it on my phone real quick.
Well, while John looks the weather up, if you do want to get
Yeah,
plugged in with the show more, you can follow us on socials. We'll have links to all of those in the description below this episode. If you're following us on a podcasting platform, be sure to also go check the channel out over on YouTube and maybe drop a subscription, link the show to somebody else, help us grow that content base. And if you are watching over on YouTube, do the opposite. Head over to Spotify, follow the show, or on Apple Podcasts, subscribe to the feed. Again, leave a rating or review, maybe comment on it. Helps other people find the show, increases the viewer base, and just allows us to continue to do what we're doing here, talking about Pokemon and having fun doing it. So before we say goodbye, John's going to tell us about how the weather will be for you heading down to Brazil this week.
yeah. So you have a lot to look forward to, at least Thursday and Friday. Thursday, the high is 75, and Friday it will be sunny with a high of 85 degrees. So you'll have a nice spring, late spring day to look forward to in Brazil. So enjoy yourself. Eat local food. Be adventurous. You don't get to go to another country every day, so enjoy it. Make sure that you're representing your country wherever you're coming from, with grace and respect, and all that. So, but
And be
yeah,
safe.
yeah, be
Be
safe.
safe.
Don't
Like
do anything.
travel.
Travel in a group.
Hmm.
Uh, don't go with people you don't know. I guess,
Yep.
or it,
Don't go in the
you know,
dark alley. Don't
yeah, yeah. Just be
stand.
smart.
It's kind of standard traveling fare, but especially when you go into a country where you have to do things like if you're not from South America or you're not from Brazil and you have to get like it changes to your cell phone, like eSIMs and whatnot, just protect yourself as much as you have to.
Yeah, Ubers are relatively cheap too, and they're pretty secure down there. As long as you're verifying, your driver and all that. So I'd recommend just taking an Uber than walking. And Sao Paulo is definitely not like a huge walking city. At least I don't know, not the area where I was staying at as a staff member last year. So
Gotcha.
Ubers are fine. But yeah, that's all I got, and I'll hopefully hear from you guys soon in the comments, and hopefully hear some feedback that we're doing well or that we're something we can improve on. So yeah, thank you.
Yep. Like John said, thank you. Thank you to everybody for listening, and we will come at you next week with these LAIC results and maybe our first thoughts on the Phantasmal Flames format on the next episode of the Battle Frontier.
See you.